we BYO avocado because they don't do avocado. So we bring avocado from the supermarket.
I'm never going for dinner with you guys. No, kidding. On today's episode, I have Alfie Robertson. Alfie is the guy to follow if you want to feel inspired to be your best self. I always see him down in Bondi, and he doesn't just talk the talk. He is out there every day working to be better. We have seen a real movement in people prioritizing their sleep, reducing their alcohol intake, and adjusting their lifestyles to see their full potential. Alfie is truly at the forefront of this change, especially here in Sydney, and I'm so excited to learn from him on today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of Self-Dom Beautiful Humans, a safe place to learn and get inspired to live your healthiest and most fulfilling life. I am Dom, your host, and I feel so grateful to be living my passion, getting to interview inspiring and knowledgeable guests. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me on.
We were just chatting off mic about his journey into social media, into training, and I'm feeling inspired. So you told me you didn't have Instagram until a year ago. You didn't start doing social media?
Yeah, well, I had Instagram, but just like a private, personal use. So it started back in September last year.
Yeah, and then tell me the journey from last September till now. What's been going on?
Yeah, it's been a rapid ride and a super awesome one as well. I think September sort of started before September, so I think it's important to note the things that led up to it. So I think background, always loved health, fitness, trained since I was about 14, 15 for rugby. Mm-hmm. Came over to Sydney to play rugby, went through uni here and then was studying finance and marketing, so in that commerce space. Landed the typical grad job, was at an FMCG company called Procter & Gamble, big corporate job. I think realised pretty soon corporate life was interesting, but not for me. And I realised I wanted to do something more sort of startup based. Ended up joining a startup in Singapore, which meant that I was based here but working remote, and it was in the climate technology space. Was sort of going in and out of Singapore every couple of months, and spent a lot of time in Indonesia as well. We're doing a lot of work in Southeast Asia, remote parts of there, doing conservation and restoration and quantifying carbon stock change for carbon credits.
All right, so he's got a lot of brains because he's saying words I do not understand.
They sound, I think the words sound complicated if you don't know the terminology inside it, but basic principle was global warming is obviously a global issue.
Amazing.
So the idea is the concept of carbon credits. Won't go too deep into this segue, but I think it's important because it's a good thing to understand.
Absolutely.
Global warming is super relevant and still is, despite it being bumped down the priority list as the economy sort of changes. But long story short, basically, global warming, global issue. The idea was all the countries came together. They had an agreement that said, look, let's cap our global emissions. And emissions like carbon dioxide basically contribute to global warming because they pump emissions into the atmosphere, and that heats up our atmosphere, causing things like rising sea level change and melting polar caps, etc. The idea was if we all came together, because it's a global issue, countries could agree on the net amount of emissions they were allowed to emit. What carbon credits do is they're carbon offsets. So it says if you're producing a lot of emission in Australia, you could pay someone in Singapore or pay someone in Indonesia to offset that by planting a lot of trees, because trees do the job of absorbing carbon out of the atmosphere. So we were sort of the middleman company between that. And we scaled really quickly. It was pretty high pressured environment, startup, a lot of working remote and sort of getting used to that. And I think every time I went to Singapore, every time I went to Indonesia and moved away and got to travel for work, I kept coming back to Sydney and to Bondi and being wow, the lifestyle here is awesome. I had a really good group of friends that was surrounding me. And that was sort of coming back in September. I was right, I'm going to do a bit of a hard reset. I think I'd fallen into that sort of drinking.
Well, corporate as well. I feel like it's such a big thing.
Exactly. Yeah, it definitely goes hand in hand. And particularly sealing business deals in Asia, everything's sealed over alcohol. Yeah. And it's a real, if you don't drink, it's like offending someone.
Wow.
Because they don't trust you, because they feel this person's not willing to let their guard down in front of me. Therefore, do I want to be doing business with that type of person? So with that, I knew September coming back, didn't have much travel planned. So I thought I'm going to do 75 hard, 75 days of, no alcohol being a really big component of that. Obviously the training and the physical part as well.
For people who don't know what 75 hard is, what are the key things that you do?
Key things, so a consistent wake and sleep time. reading every single day. So it's 10 minutes or 10 pages of a book, which I think is actually really important. If you read a lot for work, you don't often allocate time to read for yourself. There's following a diet, no specific diet, just a diet. Training twice a day, once inside, once outside.
Do they have to be high intensity or could one be a walk?
One could be a walk.
Okay.
Like it's pretty flexible. It's sort of guidelines to live like quite a disciplined 75 days. And a big one, which is no alcohol.
I think that would be the hardest for a lot of people.
100%. It definitely was. But I think what's great about the 75-day hard is it's almost you put the earnest onto the challenge. So I think the hardest thing with alcohol is like, why not? Is sort of the response of like, if you're going out this weekend and say, oh, no, I'm not drinking. I feel like a lot of your friends would be like, but why not? It's this occasion. Like there's always an occasion to drink. Whereas I think once you are sort of halfway through that, you're like, but I'm day 50 of my 75-day hard challenge. And it's a bit more like, oh, okay, there's a bit more on the line. Like clearly Alfie wants to complete this for himself or whatever reason it is. So they're a little bit more lenient and I think let you off the hook and you can sort of put the onus on, oh no, I'm doing it for the challenge. As part of that, one of my rules was I had to post every single day.
What made you do that?
Couple things. Firstly, I live with Jake, who's a Lasta boy online. So I'd sort of
Was he
watch
already...
him. He was already pretty big at this point. So he started posting earlier that year. And he also decided at the start of that year, I'm not going to drink and I'm going to really post. And his backstory was sort of working at Barry's. He was local PT and realized he didn't want to live or work in a gym for the rest of his life. So he decided he had to create a Lasta boy, really dial into like the mobility niche.
I mean, he's very unique.
He's a unique character.
To do those moves.
Oh, 100%.
I'm like, whoa.
He's
it does grab your attention as an audience.
He's one of one, for sure. Both in the way he moves and just generally as a human and housemate and friend and business partner, he is a one-on-one. But from that, I'd watched him grow his social media following. So he had one video. It took him from about 5,000 to 250,000 in a week.
What?
Yeah.
In 1 week?
In 1 week. You
Wow.
can imagine the notifications. Hey, yeah, it's a crazy story.
I think what comes to mind for me is a lot of people see success in the people around them, and instead of inspiring, it can get them to be shy because I'm never going to be able to do that. Like they're doing that. So the fact that you saw that and you're inspired by the people around you, I think that's incredible. And I love that you took that on and just gave yourself that extra bit of challenge.
100%. I think that's really important. We do live, Australia and New Zealand have a bit of a tall poppy syndrome.
Oh my God. Why? You go to LA and New York and they're just like, I want to help you, bro. And you're like, here. It's like no one wants to help each other.
That's the American thing. And I think we like, as Australian, as Kiwis, sometimes give them a bit of shit for like being so open-minded and so enthusiastic about everything. Like we're like, oh, that's so American. Like that's a bit cringe or a bit embarrassing. But it's just like everything's cringe until it isn't. 100%. Like no one looks like a champion running around with 100 followers posting and posing for Instagram until they've got like 100,000. Then people are like, oh you're actually supporting yourself. Oh, you're hiring your friends. Oh, you get to travel, work remote. Like all of those upside are only going to be realized after doing it for like a long time, and you've got to start from zero. And that was sort of September, was creating a new account, created Alfie Gets Hard, hence the name, because I was doing the 75-day hard challenge. And
so you changed your Instagram name?
No, so I created a completely new
account. Oh, wow, okay. So it was on zero?
It was zero, yeah.
Wow.
And I think that's really important. There's a couple of reasons why. One, on my private account, I shouted it out and said, look, doing this challenge, if anyone wants to follow, they can. I think about 100 out of 3,000 people followed it. I think that's really important because one, it told me the people who follow me, they follow me for like who I am as a person, not necessarily to be like bombarded with all my fitness stuff.
So the mincemeat with the berries and the maple syrup or something. And I'm like, do I need to try that?
So I think that's really important because if you are thinking of starting your own journey, I think you should start a new account. Ultimately, because the people who follow your existing account probably didn't follow for that, like to be bombarded with that
is
messaging.
Such good advice. And I think people are scared too because they don't want to start at zero.
Yeah, but it's also going to help you because the way the algorithm works on Instagram sends it out to 10% of your existing audience and they validate it, engage with it. And then once it's validated and engaged with, it goes to the next level. Again, followers of followers. So it's trying to send the algorithm, like whenever you create content, it's trying to send the right content to the right people. And I think that's a really important thing to understand because if you're now posting all this fitness content and it's going to 10% of your audience who didn't sign up for fitness content, they're not going to validate it. They're not going to engage with it, and it's not going to grow. So it feels like a step backwards, but really it's going to set you up for a lot more success.
That hit home for me because my account started as like a fashion modeling, and now I'm definitely into the health space. And I look at the engagement on the self-dom account as a percentage so much higher, but it's because everyone's streamlined. That's all I've ever shared. Whilst now on my main page, it's kind of a variety. So I guess I look at your content, it's so streamlined. You go on your page, you know what you're going to get. I'm like, do I want to start another account from zero?
100%. Well, you look at the way now, the social media that I have, it's like Alfie Gets Hard remains like the lifestyle piece, because how that started was documenting my 75-day hard journey, which was a lot of like what I did in a day. Then there's Train Pure Body, which is all dialed into training. It's very educational focused. And then we've got Pure Body Eats, which is all of the nutrition. Now, obviously, like if you're speaking in a fitness niche, there's going to be overlap. You don't necessarily need a single account for each like I've set up. But the less overlap there is, the less engagement there'll be. So if you can like niche down and at least work out like what your content pillars are and how much they overlap. Because the sad reality is maybe people who are following you for fashion and like modeling specific things may not be as interested in like the self-help.
I know, but I love it all.
Yeah.
That's my personality. It's like not one thing. Like I absolutely adore everything equally.
Which I think you can still get across, but you've got to know that you're now attracting those people that love everything equally, and there's just less of them.
Less of them, yeah. All right, I want to take it back. So you've started your Alfie Gets Hard Instagram.
Yeah.
And how's that journey, and when did you start getting traction?
Yeah, so created content for, well, every day, but I think from that it was like 40 or 50 days in was when it started to pick up. But I think one of the things that I found really positive about the whole experience, one, I didn't do it necessarily to blow up. Like the goal wasn't let's just go viral as fast as possible. It was more about documenting my own journey.
And it's accountability.
It's a great piece of accountability.
100%.
Even if you're posting for 100 followers, at the end of the day, that's 100 people. If you put 100 people in a room, that is so many people.
Yeah.
I think that's what people forget about social media. We look at these huge numbers. It's like if you actually fit that amount of people in a room, that is so many people. So accountability was a really big piece. And I think that's super important. Like you want to go into this thinking, you don't want to necessarily go in being like, I'm doing this just to go viral and just, well, otherwise you're just going to get upset because there is a bit of luck involved. It is just consistency over time. You do need to zoom out and look at it on like a month or year scale, not every single day. Otherwise you're going to put something out there. It's not going to go well. And then you're going to get frustrated and give up. So posting consistently, I think I saw about day 40, day 50 around then. It had been like a slow and gradual, increase to about 1,000 followers. And then it started to like really, really go from there. I think I hit like a couple of days where I was going at like 5 or 10,000 followers a day. And then it sort of
That's
like
insane.
troughs and it comes in and out depending on what you post.
Yeah. And your own personal experience with the 75 Hard, had you done that before?
Yeah, I had tried it before and I hadn't posted about it and I didn't complete it. And it was alcohol that got me because I was like out. I think I made the mistake of going out thinking that I wouldn't need to drink going to like a festival. And I think I was like day 10 or something. And it just got, I was just like, it's day 10, who cares? That was like maybe a year earlier. So I had given it a go before. And I think for me, like alcohol, there wasn't a huge turning point of, like, I've like ruined my whole life with alcohol. Like, I think just like anyone, made plenty of mistakes on alcohol. I had loads of fun on alcohol, but it just got to this point where I think the trajectory of like where I was heading and where I was like really comfortable with and happy with, I was like, I could live a comfortable life and like chug along where I am. And then I was like, that's not really what I want out of life. And there's like a lot more to that. So I did a bit of reverse engineering, which I say to anyone who's not happy with where they are, I go work backwards from the person you want to be or where you want to be and what sort of traits would that person have. And alcohol was not in the list.
Yeah.
So I cut it out for 75 days and sort of haven't looked back since.
Wow. Yeah. So what is your relationship with alcohol now post-challenge?
I think the realization of like, okay, if I look at the things I've changed, and 75's hard's good because it gives you some like very clear metrics of what you're adding or taking away from your life. And if I include alcohol and be like, okay, took that away in September last year, let's track Alfie's like progression, self-development as a human, maybe success in whatever metric you want to pull for it. And if I go up until that point, of where alcohol is. I'm like, yeah, pretty good. You know, was working in Singapore, remote, working in the startup, we scaled, cool. And then I go like after not drinking, and I'm like, whoa, this is like two incredibly different people. Like I don't even think they're comparable. And I want to say like not drinking is like a superpower, because if you're surrounded by people that are drinking all the time and like getting smashed on the weekend, it's like, it's a bit of a superpower, because I'm like on the whole time. I don't really have like days off. It's just like mental focus is there, cognitive abilities there. I can train harder. I recover better. It's like, what are the downsides of not drinking? And then I guess it's like social. You do like change a little bit of friend group, and there are a few points around that. But I think if you can combat that and manage to remain social, and probably accept that you're going to have a smaller, tighter knit group of friends and not this like huge circle that you go out and party with all the time, it's a pretty good trade off.
Yeah. What I started thinking about is in Bondi where we live, I think we have quite a dichotomy with people where they can train really hard, but then on the weekend they can party really hard. You obviously saw in yourself that the level that you thought was good wasn't nearly as good as you could be. As a trainer, do you see people doing, like living this lifestyle, and do you recommend that they cut it out or at least maybe give a month off? Like, what are your recommendations?
I think it's working backwards from what their goal is. I think if their goal, like you can get in really good shape and go out and drink every weekend. Like that's not an issue.
Some of my best shape was
Yeah,
when I was
where
out.
you're like
I don't know why. I was like,
dehydration.
Yeah.
You're probably not eating as much because you're out drinking.
yeah,
Like
dancing,
dancing,
bit of cardio in there.
Exactly. Like I don't think from like a physical standpoint, it makes a huge influence. I think the bigger piece is like if people are, which I don't know, personal training always seems to overlap with these things. If people are coming and yes, they want to improve the physical, it's normally like that. There is normally an underlying driver that is not just the physical. Like there's a mental component. There's maybe like a life self-improvement. They've clearly recognized they're not where they want to be today, whether that's like physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever wall that is. And I think that's important to recognize from like a holistic health perspective. And yeah, I feel like for literally all of those other vectors, not drinking is like, at least for a short period of time, is like the best thing you can do. Because it just gives you time to like assess what's important, gives you time to assess what relationships are really important, which ones do you need to keep, which ones do you need to maybe change or adjust. So yeah, I think that's just like a base. If everyone could take 30 days off alcohol, I think they'd look and come back to it very differently.
Yeah. My own experience with the no drinking is I kind of made that decision at the beginning of the year, but then I became too rigid and too strict where like I wasn't going out because I didn't want to be around alcohol. And then I reincorporated it when I went to Europe this year with my partner, Tom. We'd have a few wines and it was super nice. And then I'll come home and if I have one wine, I feel it the next day. So I've kind of just made the decision that now I just don't want it in my life. It doesn't serve me. But I only think you can have that realization when you've had time off. I think a lot of people might do 75 hard and when they finish, they just smash it, go on a bender. I'm sure you see it all the time because it's like a reward for the hardship. But I think when you speak, I see there's a lot of purpose in you. And I think that's your driving force. It's like you want the energy so that you can do what you're so passionate about. While someone who may not be as passionate about their job and their career, it's that release. So yeah, it's really inspiring to hear you speak, especially as a man, talking about not drinking and being vulnerable and saying maybe you did lose a bigger circle, but now you have your smaller circle that you can nourish. So thank you for sharing that. I want to talk about diet. Your reels on diet. I now eat a lot of mincemeat because of you.
Let's go.
I'm always like to Tom, I need to try eat it for breakfast. You pair it with berries and is it honey? You do something like this.
Yeah, it was a bit of a mixed one from Jake. I'm not. I'm gonna throw the curveball to Jake on the blueberries and mince, but mince and banana, grilled banana, is a great combination.
I just got told I can't eat bananas.
Why not?
Because I have to be on a histamine-friendly diet.
Wow.
Because I've went off the pill, so my body's suffering with like inflammation and all that happens with coming off the pill. My liver is suffering. So I can't eat my favorite foods. I can't eat eggs. Can't eat banana. Can't eat spinach. Can't eat strawberries.
Wow.
Can't even eat like lemon or sauerkraut. Like these are healthy foods. no avocado.
Oh my goodness.
I know, I'm devastated.
I'm forever grateful that the majority of our clients, like 90% of our audience, probably 99% of our clientele are male, because there are just so many more complexities with training females, particularly if you're going to give like diet and nutrition advice.
I think as a woman, what I've realized is our hormones are this whole thing, this whole roller coaster, and we work off a 28-day infradian rhythm. So we're so different every day, but men, you can kind of, if you want to do intermittent fasting, you can. Whilst as a woman, we can only kind of do it in a small section of our lifestyle. But you do train a fair few women, or not only just men?
Pretty much men.
Wow,
Majority,
okay.
yeah. Which is actually like, I think people would look at our audience and be like, wow, but there's like the split demographics wise is like 90 to 95% male for
Wow.
both Jake and I, which
That
is
is-
super interesting. And then it's funny, our housemate, Marley, who's like final year medicine, his is like 60% female. I'm like, people are following for different
reasons. But
I
it's
think.
quite interesting from a marketing standpoint, because obviously you're marketing to men, but often women want to buy things for their partner or for their...
Yeah, that's true. I think, well, like we see the data normally from if we're doing like clients online and things like that, who typically are male.
Yeah.
But even audience demographics as well, which is interesting.
Yeah. So say a guy was coming into the gym, he hadn't trained before, he was new to it all. Like, what are your basic advice?
Yeah, so if you come into the gym first time, I think you need to work, I reckon 3 to 4 days a week would be the first
Weight
thing.
training?
Weight training. 10,000 steps a day, minimum.
You would be doing so many steps. I see you walking Bondi to Bondi.
Yeah, we do quite a few steps, but I think 10,000 steps minimum. I think that's really important, particularly if you're in like a sedentary job where you're sitting down a lot. I think stepping, in the morning, stepping after dinner to like digest.
Do you guys go as a house on a walk?
Sometimes we leave the house to get out and escape the house. I was saying to Dom before, we live in a 5-bedroom place, which is a lot of personalities, a lot of energy, all of those things. So it is nice to escape sometimes. But yeah, I'd say with the weight training, we do full body workouts. So it's like full posterior chains. That's like your back, hamstring, glutes, calves. And then we do full anterior. So all of the front of your body. We moved to full body training splits in the last 3 to 4 years and have found, one, it's super effective with your time, but also like the frequency and the reducing some of that volume is just great for like joint health, longevity, like ligament strengthening. And it sort of allows you to pair these compounds, so like your big heavy movements, things like deadlift, shoulder press, bench press, with lighter, more accessory work, which is what we call prehab. So essentially like pre-rehabilitation exercises, so to try and strengthen those joints before they get injured. And I think that's a really nice way to train. Obviously heavily influenced by Jake, who Elastiboy is super mobile, but is really good at working through like that strengthening at the end range of motion. So the whole idea is it's called strength through length. So when you're in the longest position of the muscle, you want to be strengthening at that end range, because that's normally where stuff goes wrong.
Tom saw you at the gym and he said you were doing some quite like unique moves,
Yeah,
and he's tried to pick them up, but I think he might need like a one-on-one to pick up these kind of unique things that you do. But again, you're working on this length and strength, which I think a lot of men don't do.
No, yeah, and like a lot of it's taken from like Pilates, yoga. Like we're definitely not recreating the wheel here. Like we're taking what's out there. I think just integrating it and repackaging it into something that's a bit more sexy for men that want to feel strong and powerful. And they don't necessarily want to do like a hot yoga Bikram class. But, we love all of that stuff. And I think the more, and we're seeing a big shift of, one, like the whole wellness space. But I think people also treating the gym as a place for longevity and vitality, not just for looking a certain way, which is awesome.
Yeah, well, I just thought of this now, was that I was at a Lululemon event yesterday and they did these studies about the pressure of being well now. It's almost unhealthy. Like there's so much pressure. And I think people might look at certain accounts, like maybe both of ours, and be like, oh, it's not attainable. What would you say to those people? Like, you do work for yourself. You might have more time to kind of train, but like, what would you say to those people that think, oh, they're taking it too far? It's not realistic. We're not able to do that.
Depends where people derive their motivation from. I think if you're deriving it from like external sources, it's probably a bad start. Like you need some intrinsic motivation of like, why are you pursuing this yourself? I think for us, people like yourself, like Jake, like myself, it is our job. We are privileged to be in a position where we can focus on this. And I think you need to lead by example. Being at like the top of that, I think people can work backwards and they should realize, you know, Rome's not built in a day. We've trained for years and years and years. And the great thing about exercise, but also the hard thing to understand when you start, is it's a compounding effect. It's not just showing up for those 4 sessions 1 week in a row. It's doing that week on week on week, month on month, year on year. And that is what builds a really, really solid foundation. And I've always said to every client, like, it is so much easier to maintain than it is to like get there in the first place. Once you're there, like the maintenance is really easy. One, you've built those habits, the discipline, you know how good it feels when you're there. But also just generally like your body adapts to the stimulus far quicker than someone who's going from that, you know, a really, really beginner base to start.
I'm sure it's super rewarding seeing those people over the years really transform. Like I saw on your website the transformations. I feel like as a coach you would be so proud.
Well, what's crazy is a lot of those, I run like a 30-day challenge and a lot of them happens in 30 days.
What?
Yeah. Like
some of it's crazy.
Oh, it surprises me as well. And I think just as it's all about consistency and building that foundation, you do sometimes get what's called like beginner's gains, where you like go into the gym and just by changing small things in your diet, just by hitting the weights and like progressively overloading, you are in this like beginner phase where everything is progressive overload because your baseline is set so low. So suddenly when you start doing these things, you can see some pretty quick changes within like 30, 60, 90 days, I'd say, is like when you get in that like a really impressive transformation.
Yeah, I always talk to my coach about it because I'm like, I'm not seeing much change. He goes, yeah, because you're already at this level now where those like really minute changes are super hard. Like, and for me now, training is about being my best self. It's not about changing things. But then sometimes you see these transformation photos and you're like, how? What did they do? But yeah, it makes sense. Their baseline, you add a little bit of something and it's like a full transformation.
Yeah, and that's a really important point. I think we are creatures of comparison, and social media now is a world where you don't compare yourself to Betty down the street or Shane down the street. You compare yourself to a global, incredibly successful highlight reel that is just constantly in your face. Like you now, let's just say it's like modeling industry. It's like you don't get the gig you want, but you can now compare yourself to someone in LA who's landing the biggest jobs.
100%.
Whereas previously it was only the people in your like, well, tight in a circle, then maybe in like your industry in the same location that you're comparing yourself to. So I think that's something to keep in mind. Like everyone's journey is separate, whether that's like a physical transformation from training, whether it's monetary from working, and you've just got to like, you know, a little bit the racehorse with the blinkers. Like you do have to put the blinkers up. And I think social media is like the opposite of blinkers, whatever that is. It's like 360 vision all the way around, eyes in the back of your head, eyes in front of you, you can see light years into the future. And it's just like, put those blinkers back on, focus on yourself, remember why you're doing this for yourself as well. I think that's really important.
And I think that's where the mindfulness really plays a part. I mean, we've spoken a lot about the physical, but the mindfulness really brings you back to yourself. It really brings you back to your goals. What sort of mindfulness practices do you have in your routine?
Yeah, so just bought a Kindle Scribble, which I actually love.
A what?
A Kindle Scribble.
So I've got a Kindle. Can I scribble on there?
Yeah, spot on. Yeah, so it's a Kindle that you can write on. So I'm like, I do love pen and paper, and this is probably the closest thing that's pen and paper, but it's digital. So it's like very similar to the iPad, but you've got like a stylus, like a pen, and it actually sort of feels like paper. They've done a really good job of recreating it. And it means, one, when I'm reading, I can write like notes and extracts. I love highlighting
that.
and doing all of that. And then you've also just got like a pure notes if you want to write a bunch of stuff and journal, do all those pieces. I'm trying to journal more. I find if I don't do it before coffee, like I need to do it before coffee.
It needs to be first thing.
My brain's too like, it just becomes like a to-do list for work. And I'm like, no, I need to like pour some time into it. And I think Kindle Scribbles definitely helped. I don't work with them. I'm not plugging them. I just feel like it's been a bit of a revelation. And I also find reading is a really good way for me to disconnect. So a big piece of mindfulness for me is, given my wife is on a small little metal box these days, to put that away around, if I can, 7, 8 p.m. and read before bed. Such a good way to shut off. And that's really important. I think sleep is like, for me, not drinking, one, and sleep are like the most underrated.
Oh my God, you're in the
things
granny
ever.
club.
Sleep
You're in the
is
granny club with
I'm
me.
in the granny club for sure. 8 hours sleep, like, you know,
Beautiful.
in bed for 8, aim for 7. I
There's
think it's the
nothing
most
better.
underrated. I say anything's possible if you've slept 8 hours, but like anything's possible on a blue sky day. Same thing, but with 8 hours sleep. It's incredible. And when you don't get it, it's so average.
I know. I feel you. And I feel like in this career path, sometimes you've got to be somewhere early. I really feel that now because my mornings are sacred. Like, I feel one of the benefits of being my own boss is I try not to make plans too early just because I want to get my full sleep. But I just had Tom on the pod, my partner, and he grilled me because my sleep pattern is so strict. But he knows, like, that is the most important thing to me is sleep.
Well, I think what's interesting, and we talk about alcohol, we talk about sleep and all the things that you integrate into your routine, is I'd say like with any mindfulness, any wellness routine, anything like that, you're basically raising the baseline of what you can perform at. And I think from the outside in, it's very easy to critique that and say, oh, you're not very, like, I can't put you in you become less compromising. And it's like, I can't just put you in a situation and you can adapt. It's like, I can, but I've just set for anything I can control, the baseline's like so much higher. Yeah. I think drinking's a really good example of that. Like people walk around at like 40% of what they could be, and they've never experienced close to that 80, 90, 100% because they haven't had a prolonged period of time off alcohol. So they accept that 40% is who they're going to be and that's what they'll perform at. And I think that's like why I'd encourage just 30 days to see, can you perform higher than that 40%? And if you are performing, the outcomes are better and you're enjoying it, why not maintain it?
Yeah. So we've talked about physical, we've talked about mindfulness. I want to talk about your recovery. What's a recovery day look like for you?
Sunday is like generally Sabbath. Recovery day. If I'm not doing a long run on a Sunday, it's like a recovery day.
A long run or...
I know, that's the issue. Long run is like...
So Sundays, you train daily, hey?
I do train daily. But I think the recovery practice doesn't need to be concentrated to one day.
Yeah.
I feel like the training, we split the frequency across the whole week and we like to think about recovery the same way. So for me, recovery, obviously 8 hours sleep, sauna. Love sauna. We've got one at home. Sauna 4 or 5 times a week.
Wow.
Yeah, I love it.
I thought I did a lot with 3, but 4 to 5.
Yeah, 4 to 5. Even like I've had weeks where I'll do every day.
Every day when it's cold.
Yeah, when it's cold.
Best.
It's just great. Like we'll go for a swim. We put the sauna on. It heats up. Takes about 30 minutes.
I know, it's so
infrared
good.
one. We like jump back in. Nice time to like disconnect. Put some sauna music on. The classic like meditation vibe.
Have you tried putting peppermint oil in a little glass jar?
Ooh.
It brings it's
in an
beautiful.
infrared though, or a
yeah.
traditional? Really?
So we've got an infrared here. We have a little shot glass, and you put peppermint oil
Nice.
or essential oil, whatever you have, and it makes the whole sauna smell so good.
I am amazed. Our one, like, you know, we're some big sweaty boys sometimes, and it somehow doesn't smell. Like it's that wood.
Maybe you think so.
Well, yeah.
No, but it
true.
kills everything.
Well, it's got that wood varnishing sort of smell that like just holds. And yeah, I'm impressed.
Yeah.
I'm impressed by the sauna build.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will try that with peppermint. So I think sauna is a really big one. Ice baths, I get massage as well.
How
like
often
deep
do you ice
tissue.
bath?
In winter, not as much. In summer, I was doing like every morning.
Wow.
Just jumping in. Yeah, we loved it. Just first thing, straight out of bed, literally roll out of bed and jump in.
Then you do your journaling. You'd be so on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'd...
You journal
know.
before. Because you're in a state of beta or theta when you wake up straight away and you meditate or you journal, and that's like your kind of lucid thoughts. Like that's where you want to be because you're not distracted. Like I know if I even just look at my phone before I meditate, see ya. The practice is hindered.
Yeah.
I'm much better just getting up. That's my spot right there. Me and Tom meditate every morning, and we have to do it before we do anything.
That's great.
We just have to, because I feel you. If I do anything before that practice, my mind is impacted. I feel like if I ice bath before, I would be too like pumped up.
It's seriously underrated. I think there is this huge swing in like the wellness space and just fitness and holistic health, where if you think like 4 or 5 years ago, meditating was seen as like pretty lulu, like there's only a select few people that do it. It's like not common at all. And now you see like meditation practices down in Bondi, like hundreds of people.
Bondi is incredible in
Bondi's
the morning.
unique.
Like seeing the South Bondi slab, and there's people doing yoga, meditating, breath work, like Kundalini. It's really special. I feel so grateful to live here.
It is pretty awesome. And that is another thing, like my frame of reference is heavily biased because we live in Bondi, which
Yeah.
is so unique. And I think leaving Bondi, you realize that not just in Sydney, but like globally as well. It is a very unique experience of people that are so wellness orientated, which is awesome. And I love that it's created a place where people come and the thing they do is get fit. Like there's a massive exodus of people coming over from New Zealand, which is where I'm from. And I feel like people come over here who aren't runners, aren't really into the gym, and that's what they do
Yeah.
because everyone does that, and it's a great way to socialize and meet people.
So good. Well, let's talk a little bit about Pure Body. So Pure Body is where you sell your ebooks, right?
So we have separate brands. So Jake's Elastiboy, which he runs his own mobility stuff on. I've got stuff under my own account. And then Pure Body is more where we do like our high ticket. And then we've got a food page as well. So that's where we're working more on like a one-on-one coaching basis where clients all online work with both Jake and I. And they're sort of our like ones that we spend the most time with.
Yeah. So you've got Pure Body Eats.
Yeah.
And one of the things you've got is how to eat out, which I love because life should be fun, should still be able to go out. I think people would see what you eat in a day and think, oh, they're just cooking everything at home. But what are your rules when it comes to going out for a meal?
I think all of our rules when it comes to nutrition is super simple. Again, catering for a male audience. We know males like simplicity and functionality. So everything we cook, very simple. In terms of eating out, it's just like prioritize protein, work backwards. There's a few things like people need to take into account, but generally try and work backwards. Like there are meals that, you just want, and if you're craving that, I don't know, pad thai, like
You have it, right?
yeah, of course. But just build it around it. Like if you know you're gonna have it, you can adapt what you have for breakfast and lunch. It's just taking into account and like a bit of give and take of if you want something, you can have it, just incorporate it and ensure that it's being accounted for. And zoom out. Like it's not gonna change or move the needle just one meal, one day.
I feel like it's more beneficial to share that beautiful meal, that pad thai with someone and enjoy it rather than stressing about it because then your body's just going to hold on to it as
Yeah.
stress.
100%. Life's like a continuous opportunity cost where you've got to make decisions and you've got to decide what the upside of the decision is and what the downside is. And there's a lot of times where the upside of sharing that meal, sharing that glass of wine, all those things is worth it. So I think, like who am I to say what you can and can't do?
No.
I just put what I do out there and hopefully inspire some people to do the same.
So when was the last time you had a naughty meal out?
That's the thing though, if you eat and take things like sugar out of your diet for a long enough period of time, you start to just crave, like I crave like mince and steak and those foods. Our like celebration meal, we get out to Hurricanes
Oh, it's so good.
and we get like the ribs, we get the bibs on.
Do you get chippies?
No chippies.
No chippies!
But they've got roasted, really good like roasted potatoes. there.
Okay, yeah.
They like garlic, herb, butter, roasted
Do you know Hurricanes do
potatoes.
the best oysters?
No.
They're just so strange. They're so good.
It is located by the beach. so
It's
you'd
very
hope so.
good.
It is really good.
So you
It's
get, like, the rib-
consistent.
the rib
we get
combo.
the ribs and we get no sauce, no basing sauce, which is a bit weird. I know.
No, this is your cheat meal.
But we BYO avocado because they don't do avocado.
No!
So we bring avocado from the
What?
supermarket and literally open it.
I'm never going for dinner with you guys. No, I'm kidding.
It's
I love it.
yeah. But I feel like for guys like
Do you know
if I
what?
was-
That's like you have your tribe and that's what you do and it's great.
Yeah,
Zero
100%.
judgment. It's just the whipping the avocado out of his pocket is just be so good.
Well, it's just they don't sell it. I'm a big believer.
You need your healthy fats.
No, I'm a big believer that if a restaurant doesn't serve something, as long as you're like ordering food there, you should be able to bring it yourself.
Is it in a Tupperware or you just bring the whole thing?
No, just bring the avo from we go. Woolies
get it on the way.
Yeah, on the way. Pop in, couple of avocados.
Okay, so just say your order at Hurricanes one more time for me.
So double beef ribs, no basing sauce, and then they go, "Are you sure you don't want basing?" And we go, "Yeah, we're sure." And then
So what's it cooked just on the fire?
It's just like basically they put like obviously all the barbecue sauce and stuff, which has a lot of sugar in it. So we don't love it. Also, once you've set your baseline, but like
That's
just
what you're used
baselining,
to.
You're used to it, and like the amount of sauce they put on there is actually quite sickly for our taste buds, to be honest. So we get it No basing. And then they normally go, oh, can I have to go check with the kitchen? I'm like, I've ordered this the last 10 times. Go to the kitchen, come back. Okay, yeah, they can do it, but it's going to be really dry. No worries. Okay, we can go
We love
forward.
dried ribs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's fantastic. And then we get broccoli, greens.
Oh yeah, they're so good there.
Yeah. Potatoes, avocado, BYO. That's it. Lots of salt.
Okay, so when was the last time you ordered pad thai? Or you just don't even crave it?
I don't know.
You need to talk to Tom. He's got a pad thai addiction.
I don't really crave it. Yeah. I think once you've set that baseline, you start to just move away from those foods.
No, and I do agree with that because people will say like, "What's your favorite naughty sweet?" And I'll be like, to be honest, I love dark chocolate. I love dates and peanut butter. And people are like, "Oh, it's so boring." But I'm like, I love that. Genuinely, wholeheartedly, not trying to be healthy. Like those are the things I like. So I definitely understand where you're coming from. But I still love like a few naughty feeds here and there.
Got to put them in.
You gotta put them in. But I'm sure when you have clients and stuff, you don't tell them to restrict.
No, it's just, yeah. It's more eating from a range of sources. I feel like that 80-20 principle applies.
I think
in
it's the
most parts
best
of
rule for life.
100%.
I feel like that's where I sit with alcohol now. Maybe it's like 95-5. But I don't like the idea of never having anything again. I feel like if you're in the moment, you just ask yourself, am I having this meal? Am I having this drink because I want to or because I feel pressured to do it? And if the reason is you want to, then go for it. I feel like a lot of the times I'm out for food even and everyone's ordering pizzas and stuff and I actually don't. I want to get the grilled fish because I want that.
Yeah.
But I feel pressured by the norms to have something. So I think it's just like tuning in with yourself and knowing what's going to work with you. And I love how loud and proud you are about getting your ribs without the sauce. And I can just tell you're so genuine, not trying to put a front on. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm going to take an avocado when I go to Hurricanes and see if they know I've been talking to you.
Love it.
I know you said you mainly train men, but I do want to talk about weight training and women. It gets a bad rap. Women are scared to get bulky. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's pretty difficult to pack on like a lot of size. Like if you ask a lot of guys, I think they'd happily tell you that like building muscle is a massive priority. And if it was so easy, just like touch a weight and blow up, then I would probably be out of a job.
Yeah.
So I think my opinion on it, probably similar things apply. I would say like, yeah, it depends what you're going into it as well. Like I think there's so many benefits of weight training that aren't just about packing on size and muscle. It's like bone density into your old age. Like if you train and remain consistent with your training, particularly strength style training, things like falling down in your older age, you're going to have a way stronger bone density. And there's a lot of studies to prove that. So I think when you start peeling it back and be like, am I training for a certain look or am I training for like the longevity and vitality that comes with that? And the look is like the bonus. It sort of changes your frame of reference around it.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice because a lot of women come to me and they even like training with my trainer, they stop training with him because they're scared of getting bulky and they're just doing Pilates and yoga, which has its place. But yeah, the more guests I have on, the more I learn how important it is for your bone density and your longevity. I've heard that your quadricep muscles are the number one indicator of your longevity, which is kind of crazy.
Grip strength first.
Grip strength first?
Yeah.
Why?
They reckon grip strength is one of the best indicators for
I've got
longevity.
shocking grip strength
Need to improve it.
because I get the calluses. So I need to improve that.
Yeah. Well, because grip strength is like, if you are doing a lot of like weighted barbell, dumbbell work, like you're gripping it the whole time. Yeah, I'd say quads. There's lots of metrics.
Yeah.
I'd say strong quadriceps are important, but in terms of it was grip strength. It's also used as a measure for maximum pain tolerance. So they've done a lot of studies on that, which is around like 4 or 5 p.m., which is why they recommend people should weight train around that time.
At 4 or 5 p.m.
That's when you can withhold the greatest tolerance.
Wow,
of pain.
I'm a morning girl through and through.
So am I. So yeah, I don't necessarily follow it, but that's like, it's around 4 or 5 p.m. if you were to wake up, I think at around 7 a.m. was the study that was done. So it's like a certain number of hours post-waking is when we can withhold the greatest threshold of pain. And they think it's because that's when we would have gone on long bouts of like endurance or high level of physical activities to hunt for our dinner. I'll gather for our dinner.
Yeah,
So
we
it's fine.
always going back to the hunter-gatherer people.
No, we got to.
I know.
We haven't changed that much,
I
although
know.
people like to think we have.
I know. Yeah, definitely. I always end the podcast with the same question, which is what advice would you give to your younger self?
Don't take criticism from people you wouldn't take advice from.
Yeah, that's it. Have you watched Brene Brown, The Call to Courage on Netflix?
No, I haven't.
You will love it if you love that. She talks all about you can only take advice from people who are in the arena giving it a shot. And it kind of links back to what you were saying at the start when you started your Instagram and, you know, if you had 100K, no one would judge you, but you've got to give it a go because the people who are saying whatever they're saying, they're not actually giving it a go. So
Yeah, well, it's the whole thing of like a millionaire will never make fun of you for starting a business. Like creator will never make fun of you for filming themselves. PT will never make fun of you for getting in shape. Like the reality is the people who are in there, in the arena, giving it a go have been exactly where you've been. And they're the ones who are normally the most likely to help, not criticize. But the vast majority criticize, which is a shame. But I think as long as you have that frame of reference, it helps you sort of navigate that.
yeah, it's super powerful. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. If you don't follow him, make sure you follow Alfie at Alfie Gets Hard on Instagram. You're so inspiring and you're having a bunch of community events.
Yeah, great opportunity to mention it. We can actually see it from this beautiful podcast studio.
Yeah.
So next one's at the Promenade. We're rolling fortnightly through summer. They're called Coffee and Chill. Concept was taken from LA. They're across LA, Austin, New York, and Miami. And we met the founders when we were out there in April and we're like, we have to bring this back to Bondi. The idea is it's saunas, ice bath, recovery, and coffee brought into almost like a wellness house party feel on a Sunday. So
I
it
love
kicks
that
off-
so much. So you'll have saunas and ice baths there?
Yeah, so we're rolling in. We got a custom 12-man sauna built, which was an interesting experience. So they roll it in on like a huge trailer. We had our first one on the 1st of September, which went really well. And yeah, we sold out in like 24 hours. And this one we're on track to do the same, which is awesome.
I'm going to get a ticket straight after we finish recording. That's
Yeah,
super
come
exciting.
down.
100%. Well, thank you so much, Alfie. And I'm sure the Self-Dom community will be heading down to a coffee and chill soon.
Love it. Thanks for having me.